Soak it in. Soak it in. Week 0. We got the war chant going. I got the one, the only, Mighty Mike Langston. We are here to break down Week 0. Florida State versus Duquesne. It finally went down. So much to talk about. So many things we saw. It's just great to have football back. Took us an extra 90 minutes because of weather delay. Those of us that are familiar with Tallahassee, we know how that goes. It's at least 2 games a year. But it was great to finally get going. We'll turn this down now that we've let that run for a little bit. Let's have that softly in the background. Opening thoughts. Mike, I'll just let you kick it off. What did you see? What did you feel when you were watching the game?
Very businesslike. I saw a lot of great execution. They knew what they wanted to run. They didn't want to give too much away. They wanted to run kind of some of their basic principles. And it was clear they wanted to run the ball, and they wanted to show them like our guys are better than your guys, but we physically got to execute on blocks. We physically got to execute on the running backs reading the lanes, and then Jordan's got to get them in the right checks. And it was just a very orchestrated, just solid game plan from the start from Alex Atkins. I love the flow of what they did. Ran most of the time, but then caught them off guard with passes too when you needed to. And that's what I liked about the entire execution. Defensively, very aggressive, a lot of hard hitting, a lot of tackles for loss. Guys in the backfield aggressively, just attacking receivers, stuff that we saw at the end of the year last year at FSU, and now it's kind of continuing over in this game. So, yeah, really solid effort.
Yeah, I agree with all that. We've talked at length, had many conversations just about getting back to a state of normalcy. And it sounds strange to talk about Florida State football and being normal because, the program that we've both known to come and to love and to hold near and dear has just been excellent. It's been exquisite for so many years, but we have to be humbled by the recent events and the stuff that goes on with coaching turnover and new regime change and everything else. And I, for one, have been, humbled for that. I know you have too. And we talked about getting back to a state of normalcy where we line up and for 60 minutes, we go out there and we look like a normal, good football team. We block, we tackle, we catch, our timing's on point. We're not getting silly penalties. And we just look the part. Our kids look the part. Our kids look like they spent some time in the weight room, and we're moving in a manner of which a normal good football team moves. And today was honestly the first time that I can say in several years that we looked like that. We've had individuals who obviously were excellent. Jermaine Johnson comes to mind, Brian Burns, guys like that, and there's plenty others. But as a team collectively, it's the first time in several years that I've seen us look like how we were when I was there and the years before, which made me want to go there and be a part of that. So I was extremely pleased today to see that return to normalcy. You felt like we were normal again?
Yeah, they're different. So, I mean, you mentioned this to me during the game. It's like their players look different. Like the receivers are massive, like tall, long, rangy guys. The lines these guys are mammoth dudes, as far as controlling the line of scrimmage. And then their execution just looked normal, like, a normal FSU team, the way they compete, the way they execute, the way they expect each play when they go out there. And but the size of these guys, that was the first thing that jumped out to me. I've obviously saw a few practices and I've seen these guys, but I think this is the first time that Seminole fans got to see it, where these guys are just big all around, and they did whatever they wanted to do, and they execute. You can have a game plan, but I mean, you still have to execute what your game plan is with running the ball. And certainly, they blocked well as far as running the ball. Gave Jordan plenty of time, to throw the ball, and then only had 5 penalties for the whole game. The entire game, they had 5 penalties. So that's a real strong improvement when you consider first games are usually sloppy. So
Right.
I think from a sloppiness standpoint, it was much better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's one of the things that I pointed out as well. I didn't see a bunch of, yellow laundry on the field. And my good God, we saw a lot of that last couple of years. I mean, it was just any time a big play would happen, you feel like the momentum would go. You'd get some laundry on the field. I mean, I think we had one penalty earlier with Jarian hitting a guy out of bounds. I get that. The juices are flowing. I love to see DBs play aggressive. Absolutely love it, but you got to be smart. And Norvell got in his ass pretty good. And I was glad to see that because it's accountability. That's where you got to take the step. It's got to be accountability. I love the juice. I love playing to the echo of the whistle. That is all in the DNA of Florida State football. But you have to be smart. You got to be able to get off the field. And we can't have these referee crews looking at us like we're a bunch of wild banshees and we're undisciplined, because they're going to be looking to make these extra calls. Right. So that was the one thing that stuck out in the first half as far as a penalty. Just some things right off the top. Like, we talked about it, and I know how you feel about Coach Alex Atkins. Can't wait to meet him in September when I get down there. The O-line is big, and they look like a real O-line. You know what I mean? That's no disrespect to the guys who come through there, because all those kids gave great effort. But this O-line looks like a Florida State offensive line is supposed to look. They're big. Guys are thick in the hips, thick in the waist. They've got mass. I mean, Julian Armella coming in, that's what a 5-star tackle looks like. And we've just got a bunch of dudes out there, and they're moving. When I'm looking at Dylan Gibbons 10 yards past the play on a screenplay, going down there looking to get some on the third level, I'm like, okay, these guys are, 1, they're coached. 2, they're giving great effort. And 3, they doggone look the part. And that was impressive. That stuck out to me. The 3-headed monster at running back, everybody's going to talk about that. I know how you feel about Treyshawn Ward. You followed him ever since he was a walk-on. Shout out to the walk-ons. I wish I was as talented as him, but I'm not. He is a badass. Treyshawn Ward, if you do see this, appreciate you. You're keeping it real. Putting on for the walk-ons. I love that. 3-headed monster at running back. Treyshawn Ward had a terrific day. We'll get into his stats later. Benson reminds me of James Wilder, Jr. He looks the part physically, and he may be the fastest back and also the most powerful, which that's a crazy blend. The balance in the athleticism of Lawrence Toafili. And then you get a 4th guy coming in there, freshman. I know you're high on at Rodney Hill. I hadn't really seen anything from him, but I just felt like no matter what back they put in there, each one puts a little bit of paprika or their own flavor of spice into the gumbo. But man, all those jokers can play, and you don't lose anything with either one of them in there. So that really stuck out to me. And the receivers, we talked at length about our issues at the receiver position for the last couple of years. And we just seemed like we were small in stature. And there's a couple things guys who know ball know. If you're small at receiver, you're going to have a heck of a time, trying to run block second level, because you cannot get down there and you cannot pad up with bigger DBs or, God forbid, outside backers and get a push and seal runs. First down should be touchdowns, but you can't do that when you're small at receiver. And also your catch radius is small. And when you don't have a quarterback who's necessarily a Russell Wilson or a Tom Brady in terms of accuracy, it helps to have that expanded catch radius. And boy, oh boy, did we address that. A couple homegrowns that we've had in the program for a while. Malik Mclean, he didn't do too much today, but he was out there. Still, he big body guy, huge catch radius. He knows the system. Kentron Portier, big day. I mean, he flashed at me a couple times. We'll get into the play in the second half where I thought he should have scored, but 4 catches, 84 yards. And then, my goodness, Johnny Wilson is he's a legit 6'7", 6'8"? You stood next to him. How tall is he?
He's like 6'6", 6'7". He's tall, really tall. So he's got a lot of he's the one that I heard the most about in the fall. Obviously, he had that big play in the first half. Got a little dinged up. Sounds like he's going to be fine, but him and then Portier, and then we saw Duquesne make some plays. He's really strong. A lot of these guys, you look at all of them, they're not just catch radius high, but they're really strong, like really physically strong. So it's hard to press these guys. And we saw that a lot of the game. I think the only guy that's kind of been in the system that really had the big day was Kentron Portier. And he was the guy that really had a big day. Micah Pittman's kind of the catalyst. He puts everything together. They like to use him a lot. I love how he gets open. That's kind of his thing. He finds ways to get open, and he just catches everything. So a big, vast difference of their wide receiver room compared to last year.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you touched on Micah Pittman. Micah Pittman. I'm getting ready for Justice League draft tomorrow, fantasy football. Michael Pittman is on my mind. No, Micah Pittman, transfer from Oregon, and we talked about this. And when you broke this story earlier, this summer when he came aboard with us, you said he was going to be a big difference maker, and he doesn't fit that 6'2", 210-pound frame at receiver. But what Micah Pittman is put together. He's strong. He can go across the middle. he can turn those passes out in the flats into first downs because he can slip and or break a tackle. He has the ability to do that. The physicality, he's got good solid speed, low center of gravity. So when you look at the overall haul at receiver from FSU, you bring in Span, you bring in Pittman, you bring in Wilson, you get the development of Portier, you get the development of McLean. Man, this is an entirely different receiver group. I'm not saying we're winning the ACC. I'm not saying we're going to the playoff. I'm not saying that we're world beaters, but this is a vastly improved offense. And I just want to reel off some of these explosive plays. I get it. With a grain of salt, it's Duquesne, okay? But we couldn't do this the last few years to Duquesne. The last few years, we couldn't line up and beat them 47-7. And just listen to the length of some of these plays. We've got Portier with a 48-yard pass play reception. Johnny Wilson, 51 yards. Pittman had an 18-yard. Span had a 20-yard. Williamson had a 10-yard. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 first down, 10-yard or more plays here, and 3 of 20 or more. So the explosion in the passing game is something that we really wanted to see, and especially from what Mike was talking about earlier, the pocket. Jordan Travis stood up in the pocket and delivered some very nice footballs today, particularly the one to Portier in the second half. We'll get into that. Jordan Travis's final numbers, 11-15, 207 yards. They pulled him early, as they should, keep him healthy. He only got out of the pocket and started to ad-lib a couple of times, and we've talked about that at length. Jordan Travis is so valuable to this team because of his athleticism. He is like a jackrabbit out there. He's usually the best athlete on the field, and it now comes down to his health. If we keep him on the field, we can do some things. We can beat some people. And the games last year, we were competitive and we won. He was healthy. What did you think of Jordan Travis's performance, particularly in the first half?
I think it was really good. I told Rico before the game, like, I want to see him stay in the pocket and throw the ball. We saw explosive plays in the pocket, the one to Johnny Wilson, then later to Kentron Portier, and then he had a few others that he stayed in the pocket and he just hung in there and made some tough throws. And I mean, Jordan's going to eventually, there's going to be plays where Jordan just has to take off and feel like he's got to do his video game stuff, where the play breaks down and he does stuff. But you just want to cut down that as limitations as possible to not do that as frequently, the way he was doing it last year. But I think overall it was good. You didn't see a lot of plays where he had to the play was breaking down and he had to go. I think he was very under control. I like the checks he put them in certain runs where they were going to pass and then they checked into a run because of what Jordan saw at the line of scrimmage. And then there was a few plays where he checked out of a run that I'd get to a pass that, I think that play with Johnny Wilson was one he checked out of and he saw something and then he got one-on-one and then got a hitch and go and Johnny hit it. So I think he called a really good game. I think Atkins was phenomenal as far as how he called it and mixing it up, but also his quarterback and Jordan just executed it really well. Very under control. I like the way when they got a big lead, he kind of slowed down and kind of slowed the game down to kind of make the other team think about what they're going to do. So I just his execution was very good today. He was sharp.
Yeah, I thought Florida State was very, very good on the gas pedal, and we manipulated the clutch, if you will, really well. When we wanted to go fast and we wanted to lengthen the game, we did so, including at the end of the half when they wanted to try to get in a punt block. I thought that was very well done by Coach Norvell there. And then when the game started to get out of hand, which we're happy that it did, he was able to really pound the rock. And so by slowing the game down, you actually speed it up because the clock keeps moving. And when you have an opponent beat, you just want to get out of there. And it got to a point where they wanted to get out of there and just not take a bunch of collateral damage. They understood that they weren't going to win that game. Florida State understood that they were going to win that game. Then you just want to get into your sets. You want to get your looks. We did not have to show too much offensively as far as our pass scale as what we're going to do when we go in 4 wide and do some of those different formations today. We were able to line up base and just beat you up front today, or beat Duquesne up front today. And that was good because Brian Kelly, no doubt, is watching this game. They're breaking down this film, but there's a lot of things that Coach Norvell and his staff and Coach Atkins have in a game plan that they didn't have to put out on the table today. And it was because that O-line, at the end of the day, executed and they made big holes and these running backs hit it. And I want to touch on just the style of these runners. Benson just runs like a wild Mustang. He is just a bull to bring down. and he's going to be trouble. And if he gets to the outside and you're talking about a third level defender trying to bring him down, man, he better bring a lunch and an Echo cooler because you're going to need it. I mean, he is a load to bring down. Extending runs, planting the left foot when he's coming on the left side, planting the left foot, getting back upfield up the sideline to get those extra 2-3 yards. That was awesome to see. Treyshawn Ward, I mean, this was like watching Le'Veon Bell in like 2014. The patience that this guy has and the explosion to 1 foot go, plant and just hit a hole. That was extremely impressive. Lawrence Toafili, everybody saw what he did in Death Valley last year against Clemson with that balance. He is a tremendous athlete. And he can really do a lot of things, especially catching the football out in space. And he showed some of that today. And he ran with power. He's only 187 pounds. I really wanted to see him get up to 195, at least 200. It didn't happen. He's probably got a crazy metabolism. Probably looks a lot better than me at a pool party. But he runs with power at 187. He still runs with a lot of power. And that was really interesting to me. I was fascinated to watch that three-headed monster. And the best part about it, and this speaks to, and I want you to touch on this because you've had a lot of conversation with Coach Norvell, and you've been really preaching about the process and the foundation. And that's what we've been missing, if we're being honest. I'm not here to beat up on any previous staff or coach because I understand it's incredibly hard at that level. But there seems to be a foundation that's now building, and you're starting to see the fruits of it. And when those running backs came to the sideline, they were genuinely happy for one another. You had 3 backs go over 100 yards in a single game, and they were cheering each other on. They were loving it, and that was special because all those guys came in and gave 100% effort, and they were happy for one another off it. What do you think that there's ties with the foundation that Norvell's building in Tallahassee?
Yeah, that's why I've said all along, this is the year where you can really judge him as a coach because the buy-in is 100%. There's not one person on this team that they're buying it, and then the culture's fixed. They've got all the stuff. We didn't hear one time, during fall practice or even spring practice, hey, the energy wasn't there what I was hoping. Norvell, every day, the energy was exactly where it was supposed to be. It's really just about execution and fixing things that maybe they didn't do as well. Obviously, the running game, Treyshawn Ward was absolutely ridiculously good. Does even better than what he was last year. Seems to be more patient and more explosive when he sees the hole this year. And then Toafili's just a freak athlete. I mean, I've saw this kid out of high school, and you would not think he runs as hard as he is when he's 187 pounds. So he's a really hard guy to bring to the ground. And then Benson's just a tank. That's really the thing. I think the most impressive thing about Benson is like how fluid his hips are for a guy that big and that muscular. He just doesn't. You see a lot of fluidness with when that cut he made for the touchdown. He was just gone. I mean, he put a juke on the guy and then he was gone. And the wheels are phenomenal. Obviously, the power after initial contact. I think they said he broke like 17 tackles today. They added them all together because it was like you got to bring your lunch pail trying to tackle that guy. So I think the group in general was just really good, and it's just the calls. Just the way they called the game. I think Alex knows what can work, and he's going to execute it, and that's what he's going to run. And it wasn't a bunch of funky donkey stuff where you're running triple reverse passes and you're just trying to, it's the first game of the year, let's have fun and let's do something fancy. It's kind of like, I know what we need to do. This is what we're going to be good at. Get these guys in the comfort zone. Then we'll start throwing, because that's what they did. They ran the ball first, then they started hitting the deep vertical stuff.
Yep, I agree with all that. It was just refreshing to see again, just looking like a normal, good football team. Again, not saying we're great. We still got a ways to go. The roster flip is still underway. And Mike, I don't remember what the actual tally was. I think we broke it down offline one day, but I think there's a total of, 16 four-star players that have been added to the roster from last season to now. That includes transfers like the Bensons and the Spans and the Johnny Wilsons and all these guys. And it also includes the incoming recruiting class. So you're talking about a blood transfusion of talent in Tallahassee. And again, we're not saying that it's going to be world beaters, but this team is exponentially better talent-wise than it has been the past couple of years. And I think you saw a little bit of it today, and hopefully it goes into the future.
Yeah, and this wasn't even got to their offensive line. This wasn't even their regular starting lineup. Darius Washington was starting at center, which he hasn't done in his career at FSU. So they tried him there. I think Dylan Gibbons played some there too at center. They mixed a lot of guys in there. Bless Harris, who they got from the transfer portal, was a one player that started. And I think I want to say Dimitri, the kid from Charlotte, Emmanuel, he also started. So you had two transfer guys on the line, and those guys hadn't been starting. So to do this with a group that that you have to patch together, it tells you like the depth that FSU has on that offensive line, and just also just the game plan, the way they execute. It just looked very business-like with everything they did. Like it was never you saw one stupid play by Jerry Jones hitting the guy out of bounds, and then after that you really didn't see a lot of silly undisciplined play. It was just really solid across the board. Just we're better than these dudes. Let's kick the crap out of them. I mean, that was basically what it was.
Yeah, there's a couple of defenders, and I'm trying to keep it to the first half. And I've got some good notes, some pretty detailed ones on some second half stuff that I saw. In the first half, Tatum Bethune was all over the field. I know you talked about him. South Florida kid, transferred from UCF at a position of absolute need. We have had issues at the linebacker spot, to just put it mildly, for a while. And he comes in 6'1", 230, flying all over the field, crazy pursuit. And he just plays like his head's on fire. And you saw that in the first half. Almost had a pick. Maybe could have got both hands on it, but it was kind of across his body, got one hand on it. He flew around. Tatum Bethune really stuck out to me. And then a guy that is maybe going to put the DBU back into tally is Jamie Robinson at safety. He looked the part in the first half, the whole game really, but the first half particularly. Had pass breakups, was just everywhere. I think he had 4 total tackles, 2 solo. 2 pass defended also, but he just looked like a leader out there. He looks really under control. And we talked about that from your third level players, the back end guys, playing under control. When the ball comes your way, you have to expect it to come your way, and you have to behave in a calm manner when it gets there. You can't freak out. We don't need to talk about last year, game 1. We had some DBs that were freaking out when the ball's in the air. Ball's in the air, it doesn't care who catches it. They always taught us that at Florida State. Make the play on the ball. Jamie was really exemplary in doing that first half. So those 2 guys right there, I think they change our defense. And then when this front line comes around, and we saw Jared Verse later get into that in the second half, man, the defense could be really improved too. And I know it's been a much maligned defensive coordinator last couple of years, but I think we've got some tools this year. And the first half really flashed it. 26-0 first half. We're going into the break. Mike, what are your thoughts when the kids head into the locker room, that beautifully new renovated locker room, by the way, icy white, up 26-0. What are you thinking then?
I liked every defensively what I saw. I think Robert Cooper was getting a lot of pressure in the middle. Dennis Briggs was having a really good half from what I could see. And even though they weren't getting sacks in the first half, they were just an inch away from a lot of these sacks with Dennis, not just Dennis Briggs, but Jared Verse, Derek McClendon. Both of those guys were getting pressure. And then you talked about the Tatum near pick. And then Tatum's just so good at getting off blocks and had a few tackles for loss. I love what I see out of Kalen DeLoach. Covers the middle really well. I thought he had a really good, and DJ Lundy had some really nice plays. So I think it's a drastic jump up of what we've seen from the linebacker core, where last year they were getting very little production at linebackers. I think this year they're at least in the opening game, you see a lot of production. You see a lot of, hey, this is going to be a group that can help them. And then the back end with Jamie Robinson, I talked to you during the game, like this guy is just always under control and plays with an edge to him. I mean, they were even showing his stats, and his stats are even better than what Duran was at FSU. I think he's I think he's the best defensive player on their team, just because Jamie does so many things. He drops in coverage. He comes up to hit the stick, to knock the guy, knock passing windows, make passing windows really difficult. And he just causes a lot of havoc out there with everything he does. I think Jamie is such a pivotal part of this defense. And I like the schemes, the stuff they were running. It was very not too much blitzing, but enough where you're putting pressure on the other team. And then for the most part, guys in position. Those are a couple plays where they got over pursuit stuff that went against them, that they hit some, a few explosive plays. But overall, the defensive scheme was really good from co-defensive coordinators Randy Shannon and Adam Fuller. So I think they did a good job.
Yeah, I think there was one play in the first half. I forget which corner, if it was Jarian. I'm not sure if it was Jarian or not, but it was kind of like a press. It turned into just a bail, a man coverage bail. And he just completely just opened his hips to the field side and just gave up an 8-9 yard. That was the only thing that stuck out to me. And it kind of reminded me of the stuff that was bothering me about our defense
Right.
For the past couple of years. I mean, I speak passionately about that because I played with a lot of these guys that were just phenomenal at press man. It's what you do at Florida State. It's what we're expected to do. And sometimes when I see that out there, it bothers me a little bit. And I don't understand exactly what Coach Shannon called on the play, if they had something going on the backside or they're bringing pressure or whatever. But that was the only play I saw that really bothered me defensively, because I felt like you're just giving up a first down there on a 3rd and 8,
right.
and you're just bailing out and just giving it to them. I don't like doing that because at Florida State, we have access to some of the best athletes in the country. And frankly, if you can't line up and play man coverage and stick someone's ass in the face, run them out of bounds and stay hip to hip and make plays on the ball, then you probably shouldn't play defensive back at Florida State.
Yeah.
And I think our kids can do that. So I don't like seeing when they're put in that position. But again, I don't know exactly what the call was there. I understand different schematics. They may have had something going on. But that's the only time I really saw that. Other than that, we flew around. We stayed in a great relationship with our respective offensive players that we were guarding the whole game. I really like to see that. Going into the second half, we got off the field quick, which was great, up 26-0. And our first offensive possession, Travis drops just a dime, a 10 out of 10 dime to Kentron Portier. I thought the difference in where we're at now, which is I think we're approaching normalcy. We'll see next week because we've got a big boy, got a heavyweight. We'll see how we fare there. Yeah. But I feel like we're buoying on that normalcy. To go from normal to above average to great is having Kentron Portier score on that play. Like, you have to be aware of where a defender is, and being a big receiver, they're going to dive at your legs. It's what they're going to do. They can't take you up top. They can't handle that. Kentron Portier is a big dude, 6'4", yep. 6'5". He's got to be able to high step and donkey kick his way out of that. I thought that should have been a touchdown if he could have just ran through the tackle. That's what I wanted to see. And it's not so much I knew we would score on the drive. And Treyshawn Ward, I think, had another Le'Veon-type patient run to score. But against the good teams, like when we go on the road and we're in NC State and it's a tie game going into the fourth quarter, that's the type of play that has to be a touchdown. And that's what I'm looking for there. And so that's not a knock. I think Kentron had a great day, but that's the one thing that stuck out to me in my head. I'm like, okay, we're getting to this level of normalcy, but that's the play that Kelvin Benjamin scores on, right? That's the play that Kelvin scores. Like, you don't bring him down. He runs through that. He donkey kicks through that tackle and he scores. And when we were winning the ACC and we were striking fear in our opponents, we had dudes that were doing that. And that's where I wanted to see us get to on that play. It didn't happen. It was a great play, but it could have been even better. That's the first drive. Going into the second possession defensively, I got a couple notes because I started to really look and see how guys were flying around. There was a play where Tatum Bethune, it was second possession, I want to say it was first down. Tatum Bethune, they ran an outside stunt from the interior lineman. So he stunted out to the B gap, and Tatum came flying into the A gap. And the timing of it is what impressed me. I kind of got out of my seat, because it's first game of the year, first live bullets, and they timed that perfectly, to stun outside, occupy B, opened up that A, Tatum times it perfect, comes right off his doggone left hip, and he's right in there, TFL. I mean, that really stuck out to me. And I think it was the next play, we had Azariah Thomas, freshman, love that kid, out there number 20, looking every bit of Ramsey, had a beautiful PBU. Beautiful. Ran with him hip to hip. I don't know if there was a little tug on his inside hand. There's no way that should have been called. Whatever ref threw that laundry, seriously, have some self-accountability. That's terrible. DB makes a play like that on a ball and you throw a flag. That's shameful. That was a hell of a play to see a freshman come out there and do that. That was absolutely awesome. And that was in succession. So that was the first play. Then the second play, they did call pass interference on that, unfortunately. And then Lundy did something the next play that really stuck out to me. And DJ Lundy has not been all that impressive to me, because I don't think that he was performing to his potential, but he looks better now. And in this particular play, he had excellent technique. He squared up on the ball carrier, and he did what I call body mass tackling. Like if you are a 6'1", 6'2", 230, 240-pound backer, you need to body mass tackle people. You need to bring your body mass into them. Mickey used to teach us to take this part of the helmet and put it right through their face mask or their chest. That's what he used to teach us. So you can't do that now, but you can square up and get all of your mass on somebody and drive. And he did that perfectly, and the ball carrier just went slap back. All this like taking a little bite, angling, that's not what happened on that play. DJ Lundy squared his body and then just drove through him. And it reminded me of old school Florida State football. It reminded me of the old backers, the Derek, the Tom, Tommy Polly, and even into some of the new school guys like Nigel, the way they used to just run through guys, Telvin, the way they'd run through guys. And I saw that, and that really hyped me up. I was really excited to see that.
Yeah, I think Derek Brooks probably came out of his seat on that play. Just guy filling the gap the right way, measuring up, squaring through, putting your helmet into their chest or your head, and going to that direction, not necessarily targeting, but just physically driving through the guy. And I mean, for those that haven't seen, Lundy is in phenomenal shape. I mean, he looks like $1 million now compared to what he was last year, where he was pretty hefty. He was kind of a little overweight as far as where he probably wanted to be. And then just this group as a general, just the way they read stuff, except for an occasional Amari Gaynor being a little bit too aggressive on the edge. I think overall, I think this linebacker group was phenomenal. I think they had a really strong day, and really, it shows you why there wasn't that many explosive plays. I know it's Duquesne, but still, played Jacksonville State last year. They had plenty of explosive plays because FSU didn't really have much at linebacker. So I think the linebacker play really takes a lot of pressure off that front four, that they could just go in there, do their thing, get pressure on the quarterback, and feel confident that, hey, these guys in the middle are going to control the edges on the outside and also control the middle. And then a lot of confidence in the DBs. I agree with you. I thought the Ozari Thomas flag was ridiculous. I mean, that's just being a little bit overly zealous on a play that was a bang bang play. It's a hell of a play. Ozari was, but I've seen Ozari do that so many times. I'm kind of numb to it. So I've seen him do that in high school since he was a sophomore. So, but it was a great play. I think Kevin Knowles also had a really good game. A lot of several pass breakups, and just a group in general was flying around. They made really hard passing windows. Last year, it seemed to be much more easier breakdowns and coverages. Like you didn't see that the way you saw when they played Jacksonville State. We're going to compare two teams. There wasn't nearly as many, not even close to the amount of explosive potential plays that Duquesne could do. So there was a vast difference to not just the execution, but also just how the execution level of what guys are in what position, and just making a play on the ball, and making a play on the ball carrier, making a play on the tackler, making a play on just you're using the right technique, making things tough. Even if they catch the ball, hitting them right there. So there's no plays after the catch. So there was a lot of that, like right when the carry would get the ball, smack. I mean, they were right on top of them. So that was kind of my takeaway when I watched the defense. Just looked like, kind of go back to the word we've used, is normalcy. Looked very normal to the way FSU plays.
Yep, I agree. And I mean, that's what we've been looking to see. So defensively, they're flying around, making plays. That particular possession was impressive to me. And so at this point, Coach Norvell takes out Jordan Travis. Jordan Travis's health is it's paramount to our season.
Right.
And I've always said, your program is only as good as your backup quarterback. And I hope that doesn't get put to the test for this team, because there are some major concerns about Tate Rodemaker at the number 2 spot. And again, Tate Rodemaker is a talented kid. He's been in the program, I think, 3 years now. He's apparently one of the better athletes. I think he had a pocket escape that was pretty athletic. So Tate Rodemaker is not a terrible football player, but this was not a good game for him. And you wanted to see some more against Duquesne. You would think that he'd be able to push the ball downfield against them and make some better decisions, but he didn't. So he comes in there, first pass attempt, gets the ball tipped. I don't think the mechanics were really crisp on that throw. Ball gets tipped. Then he has a pocket escape that was fairly athletic, got to the sideline, didn't really get anywhere. And I'm concerned with the physicality of Tate. He looks a little thin, and I'm just worried that when you do that, if that's your penchant, if that's what you're going to be elite at, is pocket escaping and going kind of off script, man, those hits that you take when you go off script, those are the ones that will really, really hurt you. In the pocket, you might get swallowed up and landed on and whatnot, but those ones when you're escaping out, those collisions at the sideline, those are the ones that really worry me. And he just kind of buckled and folded on the sideline to kind of avoid that, which I'm glad he did. And then the next play, we tried to go for it. I think it was, a 4th and 7? And he tried to force a ball in the middle. And, it was, in my opinion, it's a pick six. Turf Monster goes and gets the defender, but it's a pick six. It was returned like 40, 50 yards. The guy ended up stumbling, and they scored a couple plays later. But, when Coach Norvell is giving you the confidence to go for it on a 4th and 7, when he's exuding that confidence in you to call that play, game wasn't over. We still have plenty of clock left. And then you make a mistake like that, it really is alarming. It's alarming because the fan base is looking at this, and a lot of us know with the injury history of Jordan and just some of the bad luck we've had, we're looking at this, not that it's Duquesne, we know we're going to win, but we're looking like if this kid's got to come in against the Canes, in Doak South, can we move the ball? Can we score? And when we see that, that's alarming because it doesn't look like we can. If they really load up and stop the run, and then Tate's got to force the ball and he's got to do the back half of the route tree and really get down there on some 3rd down and, +7s, it gets really concerning because there was several bad decisions. And you saw another one later in the game, almost threw another pick. So, we don't beat up on kids. I mean, we love all these guys because they're Florida State. They bleed garnet and gold like we do. But this was not a good game from Tate. I have some major concerns with him. In fact, I really want to see more of Duffy. Because I don't know that Tate Rodemaker is able to be a number 2 for us.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest takeaway, first of all, was a terrible on the interception. The guy, his receiver had him beat by 2 feet, 2 yards. And so he was open. All you had to do is put it in front of him, and he threw it 2 yards behind him. Guy picks it off, runs for 1,000,000 yards, it felt like. And then, the worst part about that is I didn't like the body language that I saw from Tate after the pick. It was very defeative, very demoralizing, just basically like it wasn't like I'm in control. Hey, a bad thing happened. It was kind of like it was just a bad body language thing that you don't want to see from a quarterback. And then, this is not the first time we've seen this from Tate Rodemaker when they bring him in a moment. I think one year he had a pick six playing against a team that they're inferior to. It's inferior to FSU. And then it seems like he's really good in practice, but then when he gets in games, it gets real frantic for him. So you got to have somebody that you could trust. I felt like when Duffy came in there, everything was calm, cool. He was relaxed. He only threw the ball a few times. He seemed to be in control when the scramble he had that was supposed to be a pass play. It was a run RPO, and it's like it wasn't there. And then Duffy's like, okay, that's fine. I'll get what I can, get down, get the yards. And it's like he's in control where everything seems to be frantic with Rodemaker. And there's just some guys that, you've experienced this when you play. Some guys are really good practice players, and some guys in the game, they kind of, get frantic. And I think that's certainly a position that FSU is going to have to seriously look at, because it's a major concern to me after what I saw today. Because this is like the second or third time I've seen him get in the game in a situation that he should be able to move the ball, and he got real frantic, and it caused a big turnover. So I think that's something that FSU needs to look at seriously, really serious. I know the two were really close in the battle with second and third string, so I can't imagine this is going to help Tate at all. But that was certainly, a really bad performance for Tate.
Yeah, that wasn't the best. And I'm sure he's probably harder on himself than we could be. But, in the limited snaps that I had when I was there, it's different when you finally get on the field. Because now it's not that it's not real in practice, because everything is real in practice. Everything is recorded. Everything is filmed at that level. And, you need to perform to hold whatever spot or to gain whatever footing you're trying to gain. But It's different when you're out there. And it's different when you're out there on a special team, on a field goal block or whatever, like I was, which is important, but it's nowhere near what a quarterback is. So you're out there with the live bullets out there at quarterback. It is different. And not everybody is going to perform the same way. So I think what Tate needs is a confidence boost after today. It's probably a little shaken up. Coach Norvell knows his kids. He knows his program better than any of us do. And it'll be very interesting to see what happens going forward. I mean, we got the LSU Tigers next week. That's an SEC powerhouse. They're a couple years removed from one of the best teams in recent college football history. Right. So this is no joke. This is not you're not going to get any confidence playing LSU. They got some phenomenal athletes over there. You make a mistake against them, the turf monster ain't going to be biting at ankles. That's going to be striking up the band. They're going to be talking noise. So something's going to have to change pretty quick. I thought his second drive was a little better. He had a completion, and they really just handed the ball off. And then that's when Trey Benson just went crazy with that run, and he just hit the gas pedal on him. And, man, he looks good. So all of the belly aching and the bemoaning of Tate Rodemaker was quickly alleviated with the awesome performance of Trey Benson, getting to the outside and showing real speed on the sideline. It's one thing to be a big back, but when you can get to acceleration, and I don't know how fast he was running, but doggone it looked like 20 miles an hour to me. That's a big man moving that quick. That was extremely impressive, and that put him over 100 for the day where he joined Treyshawn Ward. And so Anto affiliate at that point. That was huge. And then one thing I wanted to see, I think we talked about it, we hadn't seen a true pass rush situation, like 3rd and long, and we finally got it. We finally got it right. It was 3rd and 10, and Jared Verse, the transfer from Albany, the guy we've got high hopes on. We don't need him to be Jermaine Johnson because Jermaine Johnson is an avatar, okay? We ain't had too many of him ever. But Jared Verse has a lot of talent, and he's extremely fast. And on 3rd and 10, he got after the quarterback there. That was great to see. It's almost like a box you wanted to check. You wanted to see if your front four could get pressure without having to bring crazy blitzes, and you could just have a defensive end whip an offensive tackle's ass and get to the quarterback on 3rd and long, and it happened. That, to me, was really satisfying, and that's really the last thing that I wanted to see, and that was even before Duffy got in and made some plays, and then Rodney Hill, your guy, he got in, and he looked great, but that was the last thing I really wanted to see was that 3rd and 10 pass rush, and we got it from our best defender, frontline defender in Jared Verse.
Yeah, I felt like, I told Rico this, that I really thought that Rodney would be a big part of, this offense just because freshman, he seems really ahead of stuff, runs behind his pads really well. It's like he sees holes really, his vision's very good. He doesn't do like all, freshmen and young guys. Usually they just want to pop it outside. He likes to check it inside and cut. So he's a cut guy too. So had him a touchdown. If they'd have played him the whole quarter, he probably would have had 100. I think he was over 60 around there. So I think, you had that. And then, just Benson is a freak. He's just really unique with the skill set he has. He's kind of a mixture of a James Wilder, Cam Akers, and then, Dalvin with speed. He can fly. So he's got a lot of different attributes that are really exciting. It's just an exciting team. It's a fun team to watch. When you see things done the right way, and then it's just about executing, there's a lot of stuff they have to clean up, both with the tackling was very good. That's a positive. You don't see a lot of missed tackles for first game, but there's just a lot of stuff to clean up as far as technique and stuff you can do better. Holding the edge, I thought that was kind of something they'll probably work on more. You could do a better job of holding the edge when teams run kind of misdirection type stuff, and then in this offense, just executing, just the plays you want as far as passing plays, just executing the catch. There was a few. I think Johnny dropped his first one, and then later, there was a few of them that were in there. So there's stuff that there's still a lot that they can clean up, and certainly not a finished product. But I thought overall, very good, solid performance. Special teams was very good. I think Fitzgerald made all his kicks. I think they had one punt. He downed it inside that 5. So I think overall, if you ask Mike Norvell, I think he'd be pretty pleased. But at the same time, knowing, hey, there's a lot of stuff that we want to clean up, especially with this big monumental game against LSU, coming up. Just go. I can't even stress how huge this would be for FSU to be on a national stage, and this was kind of the game I was looking for. Times do a little miss few things, and then but go out there and business like execute and just show you. Don't not show too much with your playbook, but also just show enough where, hey, we got dudes. I mean, I think that's what
Mhm.
FSU's saying. Like, we got dudes. So yeah, we got a quarterback we feel very confident in. They should, and then they have some playmakers at both receiver and running back. I think they know they can attack LSU, and it's a good start. It's a good starting point. It's like I think it's almost as good as you could hope for. If you take away, the interception from Tate, I think overall the rest of the game was damn near perfect.
Yep. I'm looking at the overall stats here, just the team stats, and it kind of when you look at it in totality, it's really impressive. It is, and again, we get it. We've said it 100 times. We know it's Duquesne. We're going to play 11 teams better than this one, but for starters to have 5 penalties, 55 yards, that could be cleaned up a little bit. It's not terrible. 15 of that came on a PI call that was absolutely atrocious. And then another 15 of that, so call that 30, came from the hit out of bounds by Jerry Jones.
Right.
So wipe those 2 away. Jerry and just be smarter, and the official not call a terrible play. You're talking about 25 yards of penalty. That's an improvement. We have not been able to have that kind of a clean slate through 60 minutes of football, since 2017. Just looking at total yards, 638 to 164. When your defense isn't even giving up 200 yards, you have a chance to be pretty dominant. I thought that was great. We were 5 of 10 on third down, 1 of 2 on fourth down. They were 1 of 10 in third down. So you win those third down, fourth down conversion battles. You look at the completions, 14 to 22 overall. Now I'm merging all 3 quarterbacks here. 14 to 22 overall. We averaged 10.5, called 11 yards a pass. So we averaged a first down on every pass. And again, when we talked about the size of receiver, getting out there on the edge and being able to get blocks, and having a guy like Michael Pittman who's done it before, right? He was in an offense out there under Coach Cristobal in Oregon where, they moved the ball. They moved the ball quick, and he got some reps out there and saw how it was supposed to look. And now he's bringing that here. And gosh, we are very thankful that he is. We did have the interception thrown. We've talked about that. Mm-hmm. Rushing, good Lord, 406 rushing yards. Now, we talked about this being an Alex Atkins offense, and we talked about what he did at Charlotte when he was there. And we talked about one of the greatest things that I think Coach Norvell's done in his coaching tenure, despite it only being 2.5 years, if you call that COVID year a half year, was his immediate pivot when we lost Kenny Dillingham to Oregon in the kind of quick, accelerated manner, that's how I'll put that. The way he honed in on Alex Atkins, it was like, okay, I got my guy right here, Alex Atkins. And the way that Alex Atkins has just been all over the recruiting trail, and he's all over these players, and they love him. You could tell it. You could tell it by the way they talk about him and the way he talks about them. And as an O-line coach who's now an OC, what do you want to do? You want to run the ball. And we're running the heck out of that ball. 406 rushing yards, 7.5 per attempt. Again, it's Duquesne, but man, that tells me that you are blocking, you are fitting, you are doing what you need to do, and you're getting out there. And I saw Gibbons get out there 10 yards past the play, just out there hustling his butt off. That is indicative of how he's being coached to play and who he is and who we are as an offense, or who we're trying to be. That really stuck out to me. Didn't win the turnover battle. That's the only thing I would ding the defense on. And I know that this particular defense really wants to be built on creating turnovers. Sometimes offenses just play clean. You don't really get that many opportunities. We got them off the field quick. They didn't have elongated drives. We got the ball to our offense. Sometimes you can bend and not break and get a turnover at the end. Sometimes you just make them go 3 and out. So we lost the turnover battle, but we did win time of possession, 35 minutes to 25 minutes. So that's what we got overall. I'm going to rock out a quick player of the game times 5, my top 5 guys. And then, Mike, I want you to tell me if you agree or who else you'd put up there.
Okay.
I've got number 1, always starts with the quarterbacks. Quarterbacks do so much, man. Just getting you in and out of your offensive checks. I mean, just getting you set up for success. So it's more than just their stats. Jordan Travis looks bigger. I see about 10 to 15 pounds of weight on him. I see extra poise. He was 11 of 15, 207, had an 84.7 QBR. He should have thrown a touchdown pass, but hey, we'll get it right next time, Kentron. We'll score on that one. Coming up in number 2, I had Treyshawn Ward, 14 carries, 127 yards, 2 TDs. Man, it's crazy to think that guy was once a walk-on. He looks like a blend of Warwick Dunn and like Devonta Freeman to me. He really does. I know it's crazy to say that, but he shows flashes of that. That was super impressive game from him. And he was impressive last year. Trey Benson had 11 carries, 103 yards and a TD, the big one down the sideline. So I got him coming in at number 3. Of course, I got to show love to a defender. And that defender is going to be Jamie Robinson, 4 tackles, 2 solo, 2 PBUs. Jamie just looked the part. They've kind of pitched him as a potential first-team All-ACC, maybe even All-American. Maybe don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but definitely first-team All-ACC candidate. He looked the part today. And then a 5th one, I was going to go with Tatum, but I thought Portier stuck out to me. Big body receiver going downfield, flashing hands, bringing the deep ball down, 4 catches, 84 yards. I got him slotted as my number 5 because that's such a boost to what our passing game did not have last year that now we look like we have it. We have the ability to go downfield. We have speed guys. We have span 6'2", 210, running a high 4.3, low 4.4. We've got Portier now. We've obviously got Johnny Wilson. We've got some big guys that can really do some things now. And to see him kind of stand out amongst that group, that was impressive to me. So I had him number 5. So those are my 5 guys that stuck out, my players of the game. Mike, what did you see? What do you think?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of my guys are kind of similar, although my number 1 is different. I have number 1 at Treyshawn Ward. He just looked different than everyone else. Like, there's nothing against Jordan. He phenomenally put him in great positions. That dude just did stuff. Like, when you watch that game, you're like, he's the best damn player on the field. Like, he just did stuff that he changed everything when he was in the game and just felt like he was always in control. They just could, if the dude wanted to run for 300 yards, you felt like he could do it because he was just, they could not stop him. There was nothing they did that they could stop him, even when they load the line. So Treyshawn Ward was my number 1. Jordan Travis, number 2, because I love the way he set everything up. The checks were perfect. He had some really good, checks where he got in the runs and got in the passes. I love the way that he read the field. I would have put him number 1, but there's a few plays where he took off running that I didn't really like, that I want to kind of see him stay in the pocket more, although I know Jordan's going to do that sometimes as far as scrambling. My 3 is I kind of tie it with Trey Benson and Philly for me, just though both of those guys were so effective as far as running the ball. I was so extremely impressed with them. And then I agree with you with number 4 was Jamie Robinson. I loved everything that guy does. He's just always around the football. You can put him in run support. You can put him in pass coverage. You feel really confident with everything he does. And then my 5 would be Kentron Portier. I agree with you. That's the best game of his career. He hasn't played like that. I don't even think he has that total for the yards he had. I don't even think he had that many for his career so far. So yeah. I think
huge game.
That was a hell of a game for him. Obviously, he would like to finish that long play in the touchdowns, but he was effective where there was several plays. He had a really big 3rd down catch across the middle. You could see there's a lot of confidence that Jordan Travis has in his skills. And I think he's a game changer that we didn't count, that I wasn't talking about him. Like, he wasn't in the group where we're talking about Johnny Wilson, Micah Pittman, Deuce Spann, even the guys that are already there, like Keyshawn Helton and all those guys. Portier wasn't a guy in that mix, so to see him actually do that in the game, now he's done that a lot in practice, but in the game, to do it actually in the game, it shows you a lot of growth as far as his game. So I think those 5 really jump out to me.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty much in lockstep with that group. I think you added another back in there. And obviously, I thought Tatum played a hell of a game. And Tatum's going to have some monster games for us. And I think he's going to be one of the players of the season for us. But that's what we've got. We have Florida State 47, Duquesne 7. Huge opening win. Week 0 is what they call it. It was tremendous to see. We are going to go ahead and sign off now. But I have a note leading up to this week. That's what it's all about, baby. Yeah. That's what it's all about. Beat LSU, the Noles,
We look normal for the first time in several years. You got to feel good. I'm getting hyped up. I want to believe again. Made a bunch of phone calls this week. I've got some people that are trying to believe a little bit. So not putting pressure on the boys, just want them to go out there, want them to have a hell of a week of practice, and then just go out there and just represent. It's a huge opportunity. National stage, let's just go see what we can do. We've been down for a while. The only way you can get it is out of the mud at this point. So I'm signing off. Go Noles, your man. And I'm with Mike Langston. You already know what happens when Mike and Rico get on the mic. It's going to be an hour, and we're at 55 minutes. Signing off. Go Noles.